Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to tell Yukon citizens, trappers, hunters, athletes, sports shooters, collectors, and First Nations who rely on long guns to protect their heritage, their culture, traditional way of life, that this bill has, as promised by our government, been introduced into the House. Mr. Speaker, long guns have been a staple tool in Yukon since its beginning, before it was designated as its own territory. And Mr. Speaker, it is indeed true of Canada itself. We have a long and proud history, one founded on a trapping culture, on a fur trading culture, on a First Nation and Aboriginal culture, and on a farming culture in which the long gun played a vital role in basic survival. Today, in many parts of our nation, long guns are essential tools of basic and day-to-day routines of life. They represent tools that allow Aboriginal and First Nation communities to hunt, to harvest, and to teach. Long guns raise Canadians to the top of podiums in Olympic and international competitions, in trap shooting and biathlon. Long guns put food on the table across Canadian homes. Fundamentally, Mr. Speaker, the Long Gun Registry has unfairly and without reason targeted the wrong people. Hear, hear. When we talk about the Long Gun Registry, we aren't talking about criminals. We aren't even talking about the sorts of guns that criminals are likely to use. More than $2 billion has been wasted, and it isn't coming back, no matter how long we continue throwing good money after bad. $2 billion wasted on a program, Mr. Speaker, that was supposed to cost about $2 million. That's a staggering difference. Our government has invested in prevention programs such as youth gang prevention funds because they are tangible, effective measures to help reduce crime. Mr. Speaker, the Long Gun Registry placed unnecessary and costly barriers in front of law-abiding Canadians. It generates more paperwork, not something that is generally in short supply nowadays. And Canadians spoke loud and clear in their objections to this. Mr. Speaker, I outlined to my riding that I aim to learn from our past, guard it from neglect, improve the present, and perfect our future. Reducing the barriers and red tape will ensure that innocent Canadians are not punished and that they are supported in the activities that define a Canadian lifestyle enjoyed by rural and by urban citizens. I'll give you a couple examples, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to quickly touch on something that I heard was a bit disturbing to me. And as a former member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and belonging to a government party that has 11 former members or retired members of police forces across this country, I can say that we have the strongest voice of frontline police services in representation in our government today. And to hear the member from Windsor-Tecumseh bring up the Mayor-Thorpe incident and then blame the RCMP for not enforcing the act as a direct result of that tragic event is absolutely astounding. I find that shocking and very, very disturbing. Then the member questions the value of building prisons, stands in the House and votes against legislation that would increase sentences and sanctions and make it tougher on criminals that are involved in those kind of grow-ups. Operation, in that case, that preempted the entire event itself. So to suggest that had the RCMP enforced that law and Mr. Roscoe wouldn't have committed that event is erroneous and insulting to the members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I can tell you, if you followed the line of thinking that the NDP positions day in and day out in this House, Mr. Roscoe may have been captured with an illegal firearm, but he certainly wouldn't have been going to prison if the NDP had anything to say about it. He would have been going to a daycare, which is not where that gentleman belonged. Mr. Speaker, I'll leave that topic at that and speak from another experience that I've had as a member of the law enforcement community. As a former conservation officer in the Yukon Territory, myself and my colleagues worked every day in remote and isolated regions of our territory, and we did so having hundreds of interactions with law-abiding hunters. Conservation officers across Canada indeed deal with people carrying firearms every day, numerous times, and have absolutely no access to a registry. This doesn't put them at any greater danger than the law enforcement community, because what they have found, as have I have found, that firearm owners are trained. They are safe, they are responsible, they are ethical and social and environmentally conscious individuals. They are not criminals. As a father, I have taught my son responsible and safe use of firearms, and it provides us an opportunity at different times in our life during busy schedules, both his and mine, to get out on the land and enjoy quality time. Firearms aren't about getting out and killing things. It's about time in the wilderness, time in our great environment, and teaching and learning and growing together. And I'd hate to teach my son that that activity is something we should worry about being criminal for because of ineffective and irresponsible use of legislation introduced by the Liberal Party. As a Yukon MP, I committed to taking action and voting to get rid of this registry. I campaigned on this, and I was supported on this, and our government is delivering on its commitment. The issue then, Mr. Speaker, is a little bit bigger than the abolishment of the registry itself. It's about restoring the faith of our constituents that we will do as we promised, that we listen to the common person, that we remember who put us here and why they put us here. And Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt at all about the mandate I have from the Yukon people in respect to abolishing the long gun registry. Mr. Speaker, we also look forward to moving along from a 15-year-long debate and progressing with more effective programs and government business. By scrapping the registry and the data, we can put this unfortunate part of the Liberal legacy behind us and move forward. I am looking forward to seeing the results of the vote, Mr. Speaker, and I am very curious to see how the member from the Western Arctic riding casts his vote when he understands the importance, the heritage and the culture and the history and the day-to-day life for Aboriginal people, First Nations communities, and lives and activities of all Northerners, and how important that is to the people of the Northwest Territories, the Yukon and Nunavut, and indeed across all rural and even urban regions of our country. Mr. Speaker, the introduction of this bill represents a promise made and a promise kept. Our government did as many individual members in the opposition. We assured our ridings, their citizens, that they would vote in favor of getting rid of this wasteful and ineffective registry. And as Robert Service wrote in the cremation of Sam McGee, a promise made is a debt unpaid. We, Mr. Speaker, are making good on this and all other commitments we have made in a well-led plan for Canada's near future during the May election. And Mr. Speaker, I would urge the members of all parties to support this legislation and make good on the promises they made to their constituents in their ridings when they were seeking election in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments?